Okay. And so I'm excited to have you guys here today. I was recently, was it earlier this month, last month? Time's a blur. I was out at Collective for Hope where they held an information session on this topic. And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to get this in front of NAM members, our HR folks, because I think we've all seen, especially since the pandemic, if not before, that man, things have changed. You know, how we got along on 3 to 5 days of bereavement leave, I don't know. I suspect I was phoning it in and had very generous bosses when that was the case, when I had a death in my family and loved one circles. And so with that, I would like to introduce Cliff McEvoy, the Executive Director of Collective for Hope, and Anica Marcum, who, are you Chief Operating Officer or woman who does all things?
Director of Operations.
Director of Operations, okay. We'll just call you the woman that does all things, because that's usually what operations entails. So I'm going to turn it over to you and we'll start our presentation. And Anica, do you want them to ask questions as you go or save them for later?
In this, if they will just save them till the end, probably in this version, normally I'd have you pop in and out, but since I can't see everybody, I wouldn't want to miss anything. So yeah, we'll have questions at the end. So.
And actually, if people, as you think of questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll monitor them, and then that way we'll have them captured. Because I don't know about you, but some days I have the attention span of a goldfish, and I might forget if I had to wait till the end. So with that, let's turn it over to our friends from Collective for Hope.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Ann. I just wanted to thank you for that introduction. Thanks for letting us come today. Thanks for coming to our first HR Lunch and Learn. The Collective for Hope's mission is to lead the response to loss, elevate the value of grief companionship, and promote healthier survivorship. We are basically Omaha's only free provider of grief services. And that is predominantly for kids who have lost a parent, parents who have lost a young child, and everything in between. So we are all ages. Now, the impetus for this particular presentation is interesting and exciting. I am the newest member of this amazing team here at the Collective for Hope. Just started about 4 months ago. And it was in that first month that Anica and I went to a seminar on advocacy. And it was a great seminar. As we were going around the table, as you do in every seminar, the simple question was asked, hey, what would we like to advocate on behalf of? And without hesitation, Anica said, bereavement policies. And I was like, all right, let's talk about that. And honestly, that simple question and Anica's answer led us down this road to some great conversations within our own organization and discussing how we could help other organizations. We talked about our own bereavement policy, which we have changed recently. We talked about the values that we have in organization, those values that we would like to share with you. And Anica shared with us that this is the type of work that she had always wanted to do. And so we started to pursue it. And it also occurred to us, you know, grief work isn't always easy. And honestly, neither is HR, right? Sometimes it's your whole job. Sometimes it's a hat you wear once in a while. But you are doing important work. And we also noticed that HR professionals are people that we would like to connect with, because when someone is going through the bereavement policy or is dealing with a death or a significant loss, like Ann mentioned, you know, who do you go to if you need to know your bereavement policy, maybe for the first time? You go to HR professional. So we just thought this would be a great opportunity to tell you about our team and include you in the work that we do and our team. And then with all of that being said, Anica has put together this entire program. We had our very first HR Lunch and Learn, which was a huge success a couple weeks ago. And so I will let her take it from here and tell you all the great work that we have been doing and would like to do with you. So take it away, Anica.
Thank you, Cliff. Again, I just want to second everybody coming on and hopping on, because grief is not the most fun topic to always talk about, but it's really, really important now more than ever. So I want to start today's presentation off. If you guys have your cell phone, I will be going over some data in this presentation, but it's data I have pulled from other organizations who are fighting the bereavement policy battle. And so I'll be using that, but I'm trying to collect local data so that we have that and we can see the need just right here in our community and be able to report that out to you guys as fellow HR professionals. So all you have to do is scan the QR code, and then it should take you straight to a survey that you can fill out as you're listening to me talk. And I can put it back up at the end too if you don't get to it, but I would appreciate your participation in it. It is anonymous, yes, you don't have to put your organization or anything like that. So I'll give you guys a couple seconds here to scan it. And then we'll continue on. All right. So if you didn't get it, I can put it back up at the end. Just let me know. Today I'll be actually going over a little bit about us. Cliff did touch on it. Data in the workplace, our new bereavement policy, and the values that we hope you can take away from this. And then some recommendations that we have and how you can partner with us. And then we'll go into the Q&A. And I apologize, allergies. I'll try not to cough through this whole thing. But about us, some of you might know us by previous names. We started off as Teddy Bear Hollow actually 1999, but then incorporated in 2001 as a 501c3. And then as we started to serve kids and families and things like that, we kind of just grew up and we're like, well, we want to make sure that everybody knows what we're standing for. And so we became Grief's Journey. And then we took on Healing Embrace in 2009. And in 2020, we became the Collective for Hope, serving all three of these programs. What we actually do, as Cliff said, we provide free grief support following the death of a significant person in someone's life. We serve ages 3 and up. We do everything on a developmentally appropriate basis. So if you come into our office or in our program office, you'll never see like ages, this and this in this room, or, you know, this is 3rd grade. So we've had people who are 25 with developmental challenges that have been in groups with teens and stuff. So everything is developmentally focused. We want to be a safe place that includes everybody and where they can process their grief safely. We are peer support versus therapy. We are here to facilitate conversation between a community of grievers and to help them build that community. We work closely with therapists, and we have one on call for us at all times, but it is peer support and helping people find a community that they can thrive in. We provide interpretation and accommodation as needed, very sensitive to diversity and inclusion. And then this one we highlighted because it's community response. As we go through today's presentation, it is more of a proactive presentation. We want you guys to be able to be proactive within your organizations, but sometimes we can be as proactive as we want and things happen. And our community response is a reactive program for that. It's for us to be able to come in when you've had maybe a death within your organization or something along those lines, and we can come in and provide programming and services for you and your staff as needed. We do care packages and weighted bears, and a lot of those, we do care packages for any loss. Weighted bears are for pregnancy and infant losses up to a year. And I think our biggest one we've done so far was 14 pounds. And if you ever get a chance to hold a weighted bear, it is a thing. It is amazing. We love them before we send them out. And then we do customized training and education, which is what this is like. So as we go into this presentation, my coworker sent me this as I was planning this presentation out. And there's an organization out there called Option B. And they are also an advocate for bereavement policies. And this quote just like stood out to me and my coworkers, and work should be the last thing people have to worry about after a death. On that survey, there was a question of, have you ever had to go back to work prior to being ready? Most of us had 3 to 5 days. Some of us might have not had any time and had to take PTO or sick leave. And so we want people to understand the importance of what treating your bereaved employees can do for your organization. Some data that was collected by option B is that more than 60% of US workplaces offer 3 days or less of pay bereavement leave with many restrictions around them. These are outdated policies that hurt employee productivity, morale, and retention. 3 in 4 employees that were studied reported that it has caused harm to their own personal work experience. For those of you that have had a loss, know that you are not the same person after that significant loss, and to go back and be expected to work exactly the same way 3 days after, or whatever the time frame is, can definitely cause harm to people's work performance. Forcing people to return too soon drives decreased productivity. This number was huge to see, that on a yearly basis that corporations and employers spend $75 billion each year in absentees. This is also, I looked a little bit further into it with rehiring and stuff after an employee has left. And nearly 80% of 18 to 4-year-olds would consider leaving a job if not getting proper support after a major death. We know as HR professionals that loyalty is not as big as it used to be, that the generation that is in work now, they're very easy, will jump from one job to another. So benefits such as a good bereavement policy is something that can help build loyalty and increase employees staying in that retention. And then turnover rates, just to go into that, is up by increase up to 43% with organizations that are not active in a bereavement policy for their employees with engaged teams. So, and I did want to let you know that I did some additional research, and it isn't on here. I'll talk about pregnancy and infant loss, but there was an organization called Evermore out of DC who does bereavement work, but they partnered with another organization called In Her Sight, and they did some pregnancy and infant loss stats on bereavement work and rights. So for those of you that may not know, for organizations that qualify for FMLA, that pregnancy and infant loss is actually covered under serious health, a serious health condition under FMLA. But in this study, it was 1,300 women that they studied who had had a miscarriage or pregnancy loss. And of that, 70% of them were not notified of their right to take FMLA if their organization qualified for it. And 91% of those women that were interviewed went back to work in 1 day or less. So so it was 1 day or less of having that miscarriage. So that was I was so blown away by that, and it just stuck out so much. So we'll talk about how you can make that more available and aware to your employees. So when we started this and Cliff came on board and asked me what would I do, and I said bereavement policies 100%. As a grief organization, full transparency, that our bereavement policy was 3 to 5 days with the restrictions that most of you probably have heard of immediate family and 5 days, maybe if it's out of town and stuff like that. And so we knew that we couldn't advocate for this and go forward without changing ours. And I will actually have Anne or Aaron send out our bereavement policy and our values, because if I was in person, you would have them in your hand right now. But we made some drastic changes, and we know all organizations can't make that immediate drastic change to your policies. So the thing I would ask that if you could take anything away from today, it would be these values. And these are values that we think organizations uh, can adjust their bereavement policy to as they can eventually make those time frame changes. So our first one is significance, that our organization does not define who is considered a significant death in your life. Grief is relational, therefore all relationships should qualify for the benefit. So, and this is huge for your DEIA. It helps include partners. It helps include foster parents, family members who may have more of a significant connection than what society considers your immediate family. At our organization, when we talk about families, we never put a definition into that. Your family can be as big as small when you come into our organization, and you can include whoever you want. And we wanted that to show up in our bereavement policy, that whatever you needed and whoever you needed to go and mourn, that you were able to. The second one is support. Our organization will help support both physical and mental needs of our employees after a death. This is providing resources, providing time off that is, good for them, making sure they're able to travel, making sure they're able to get to their memorials and other activities that are related to death. As we know, like for people who lose spouses, there's a lot of estate things and such things like that we have to include. And then lastly is security. Our organization will build trust by providing security while the employee is away from the office and helping reintegrate them back into the workplace. And when I talk about our policy, I'll explain that a little bit more, but that goes back to that quote that I first had before we got into this, is that nobody should be worrying about work after a significant loss. And knowing that you have job security, for a time, or that you can be reintegrated into your organization after a death is really important. And as I go on to explain our policy, another goal of this is to remove the one-off. Maybe one of you has had to give someone else an extended period of time off and work with them, but we don't want these to be one-off situations. We want C-suite employees to get the same as the janitor that cleans, the floors at night when everybody is gone. We want all employees and people within the organization to be able to have the same benefits. Though we understand, and at the bottom of our policy, we know that cumulative loss or other losses may happen and need individual circumstances to be reviewed as they arise. And that is still very important. But
Anica?
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to say on this slide is, these are the three values that we put in the presentation, and we have acknowledged as our own in our organization. But when we were having these conversations, other words kept coming up, and one of the words that kept coming up in reference to all of these values is trust. So at one point we thought trust was going to be one of the values, but trust kind of encapsulates and incorporates all of these other ones as well, because to Anica's point, this is how you build trust within an organization. You build trust with those employees, and that trust can turn into loyalty. As you're working through these significant losses, it's an opportunity for you and an employee to trust each other and build that relationship. And that's why I like to bring it up. I like that word trust. It just didn't make it to the final cut of the top three values, but it's in there, trust me, in between all of these. If that makes sense.
Yes, thank you for adding that, because so we stuck with the 3 S's, right? So we can just go around and saying the 3 S's. But yes, trust is huge, and that's what we want to accomplish out of all of this. Thank you, Cliff, so much. So on this next slide, this is the basis of our bereavement policy. There's a lot more on that, but what we did is we took so for anybody that works with me knows I'm really passionate about bereavement being covered, protected by FMLA for organizations that qualify for that. But we know a lot of us are small, including our organization, where we don't qualify. And so when I originally went to our board, I was like, I want 12 weeks, I want all this, but you know what? They compromised, and it's perfect for us right now. And what we have for our employees is up to 4 weeks paid bereavement leave annually. and then an additional 4 weeks of unpaid bereavement leave annually, totaling 8 weeks. So that is 8 weeks of time before you even have to have a conversation with us about what your job looks like moving forward. How are we reintegrating? This is just time for you to take. And then when that time comes after the 8 weeks or however it's used, they have the option of an individual bereavement plan upon return. This is for 2 reasons. We're a small organization, so we all know each other, but in some larger organizations, people move from supervisor to supervisor to supervisor. So if you have kids, picture this as kind of like an IEP. This is something that travels with you. It is a plan to reintegrate you, whether it's part-time or you need these accommodations now after you come back to work to get you back up to close to where you were previous to the death of the significant loved one. And so it is an option. It is not required. And because again, grief is different for everybody. And then the last part of this 8 weeks that we offer is that it does not need to be taken consecutively. For those of you that have experienced grief, you know that it comes in waves. Yes, right up front after someone dies, we need some time to get things done, to have memorial services, to travel, just to be and to mourn and be in that state. But then you have what we like to call around here grief bursts. You have bad days. And so we treat it as like a bank. I should just called it the bereavement bank. We treat it as a bank. And so if I am having a bad day on the death anniversary of my mom, I can come to Cliff and say, "Hey, Cliff, I'm taking one of my bereavement days today." And then I don't have to explain anything. I don't have to feel it. He just knows that it's just like taking a PTO day, but it's a separate thing because nobody wants to use their PTO when they're sad and they're mourning or they're dealing with a death. So these are the 4 big bases of our policy. And I will get the rest of it um, to you guys too, so you can see it. So we'll go into what we recommend along with our values, what we recommend that you can take away from this. So our recommendations are to expand current plans beyond 3 to 5 days. We know as nonprofits, especially sometimes our budget's really tight, but if you can find a little bit of wiggle room or any way to, make sure travel's included in that and things like that, to be able to do that for your employees. Highly consider letting employees take time non-consecutively, and then remove the right to classify who an employee considers a significant person in their life. This one is probably my top one of everything. If you can just remove the definition of who is significant on your bereavement policy, I think that's the biggest one because when people look at a bereavement policy, it's like, I only get paid if it's my mom, dad, brother, or grandparents. Well, I don't like any of them. It's actually my best friend who died. And she, all joking aside, but, just taking away that stress of, oh, this isn't going to qualify. How am I going to get the time off? And then, as I talked previous about pregnancy loss, to extend your policies and make it known that pregnancy loss qualifies under this, and pet loss. For those of you that are pet parents, and maybe some of you are only pet parents, and that is a really big, important thing in a lot of people's lives. And so we want to make sure that we can honor that as well. So with this presentation, we just come to you because we want to partner with you and we want to be able to help you. If you don't have a bereavement policy, create one, find a way to adjust yours and those different things. So we would offer a free consultation to for our team to come in and review your policy, where you can make changes, where you can make shifts, talk to who we need to talk to if you're not the deciding person, who, have those conversations. But what we really want is to be able to be a resource for your organization and community. And so with this partnership, what we ask is just nobody looks at the bereavement policy usually until they've lost someone, and to be able to see on there that This policy is in accordance with the Collective for Hope's values for more grief support resources and having our contact information, knowing that they have a place to go right away. And knowing, and then knowing that gives you as an employer a peace of mind to be able to say, okay, they're grieving and they have this resource right away. That's part of our values, right? That support for physical and mental needs of employee right away. So on this next slide, I've added, this is a different QR code. This is a QR code that if this, resonates with you and you really want to start taking action now, or even in the future and have conversations on how to take these actions, this is just a QR code to help us get to a follow-up with us. So it just takes it has your name. If you're ready to schedule a date on there, it has my calendar to schedule the date and stuff like that. Otherwise, you don't have to schedule the date today. You just send it. It sends me an email, and I'll be in contact with you. So with that, that's all I have, and I'll make sure you get out the additional information that I spoke about today. But if there are any questions, I would love to answer them.
So I don't see any questions in the chat box, but feel free to unmute yourself, chime in, raise your hand, whatever works for you.
One other thing I'd like to say is, we know the need for our services is in the community, and if anything keeps us up at night, it's the thought that there's someone out there that could benefit from our grief support, but they just don't know about it, right? And so we also see this as an opportunity. If you adopt our values and you put our name in your employee handbook, or if someone comes to you and you tell them about us, when they're ready, and if they can come and receive our grief services, then they know we exist when they're ready, right? And that's just one of the things we would really like to be able to provide the community. And if people don't know we exist, they don't know where to go when they need us. So this is, as Anica alluded to earlier, some of our work can be more reactive, but we see this as a more proactive way of getting our information out there and also providing a service for you and your organization if you're interested.
I just am so impressed because I know internally we've talked about this issue because people have had deaths in their families, over the last couple of years and those types of things, but really wasn't sure, like, where do we get started, and I think for me to be able to go to my board and say, this is the policy we're moving to, and it's based on best practice by the local experts. I mean, I think that's going to be super helpful. And that if you share with Aaron or I the policies and stuff, we'll forward that to the entire HR listserv as well as this recording for those who weren't able to join us today. And I hope you get inundated. And I think you should charge for this service, even if it's only $20. But that's just because you at least charge the for-profits. You can give your nonprofit friends a deal, but anything else on this topic?
And I just want to let you guys, I will send the slides too, so they'll have both QR codes on them. So if you didn't get a chance to get on it today, my email was blowing up. So thank you for those who did the survey and stuff like that. I really appreciate that, because that data is, to help us keep going with this. So.
And feel free. I mean, I would throw out, especially the first survey that you did, if you want to share that with the HR listserv and have them fill it out, you get more data, if that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Just let us know.
Yeah.